Welcome back to the Payment Shed podcast Walk and Talk series. This morning we are joined by Brian Gilman, CMO at ThetaRay. Brian, please tell us a bit about yourself and your role at ThetaRay.
Sure. I'm Chief Marketing Officer, joined in February. ThetaRay is an AI-powered financial crime compliance platform.
Oh, brilliant. And we wanted to talk today about that AI versus AML clash, if you like. There's a real balance that's needed. What are your thoughts with what's happening in that area at this moment in time?
I think we're at an interesting inflection point in the industry today where we're seeing legacy-based, rules-based systems starting to really show their cracks when it comes to a very highly regulated industry. And AI is really starting to fill that void for proving better accountability, explainability, defensibility of the data that's coming in, and especially in a zero tolerance environment that we're seeing in finance.
Okay, perfect. And I guess it can be a really, great solution to have in your wheelhouse AI, but it also comes with some risks. How do you look at the case study with Santander and the human trafficking example that they've rolled out with ThetaRay?
Yeah, so Santander is one of our largest customers, and they are using our AI solutions to really look at subtle changes in the transactions that they have in their platform. Santander, a global bank, they have millions of transactions that come to them every year, cross-border transactions, and they're using our AI to look at subtlety and changes in how people are using their system. In a rules-based environment, a lot of what they were able to find with our platform, they wouldn't find because, as we said earlier, as regulations change, as compliance changes, the speed of crime is outpacing the speed of the legacy technology, and we're able to find subtlety and nuance in how the criminals were leveraging their platform for human trafficking, something that wouldn't have been able to be found with what they were using prior.
And what's the tangible impact of that in terms of individuals that might have been affected that you've potentially prevented?
They were able to shut down one of the largest human trafficking rings in Europe, and when you think about human trafficking, drug trafficking, terrorist trafficking, there's billions of dollars flowing through the system today. And equally as important on the flip side of it, because I think we talk a lot about finding the 2 or 3 bad eggs out of 100 transactions, the ability to more easily allow for the good actors to flow through the system is the other side of this, which I don't think we talk enough about.
Yeah, the compliance bar is always raising, right? We see it year in year. Yeah. Do you think banks are doing enough to keep up? And how can a partnership from a bank with ThetaRay, how do they go about solving those challenges?
Yeah, I think it's about accountability today. When you look at the compliant legacy systems that are in the market today, while compliant, they garnered $4.5 billion in fines last year. And so I think we're at a point in time, and you're hearing it throughout the show, about, I think AI is becoming more of the norm, and banks are starting to figure out, how do we do this? And it may not necessarily be a rip and replace, but how do we lever an AI platform to come over the top, to prove the model, to prove the better efficiency, and then over time begin to migrate.
And it's easy just saying, we're going to do AI or we're going to take AI, right? But it's a bit wishy-washy as a statement, and we've had quite a lot of conversations in the last couple of days, but I'm very interested with the bank side of things. Are you talking about as well, managing these huge compliance teams or helping them to scale back those teams through the use of AI, or is it an enabler for those teams?
It's both. So if you think about a very large bank, they may have millions of transactions, and to handle those millions of transactions and the false positives that are coming through their network, they may not have hundreds, they may have thousands of analysts looking at all these false positives. So some of this is efficiency within their own network, but we talk about AI as wishy-washy or a black box. We'll talk a little bit more about our announcement, which I think is moving the market forward, but it's providing explainability. If I have a singular alert and I give it to an analyst in Chicago, and I give that same alert and I give it to an analyst in New York, they're going to look at that alert differently. And so there's the people think of AI as a black box or wishy-washy, but AI is also providing a level of not only credibility, but repeatability in terms of how it looks at alerts and then learns over time in terms of how to evolve those things. And it can also find nuance that the rules-based systems can't today. And so I look at it at much different in saying wishy-washy is when you say you can either go right or left, but there is no in between. that's not good for finance, that's not good for fintechs or banks today. And we have to find a way to move the ball forward.
I think part of the problem there is maybe just how flooded the market is at the moment. We saw it with open banking, we've seen it with various new innovations that have come in, and I think with AI, it's no different. There's a huge pool of providers to choose from now, and that can be a little bit confusing maybe for brands that want to use AI or they want to explore doing something with AI, but consolidating as to who they should actually be speaking to is still quite difficult at the moment, just because there's so many players, right?
Yes, and I think that part of the challenge is that AI for a lot of companies is a black box. They don't provide the explainability, the traceability of how they're getting to the resolution that they are. I'm gonna jump to the chase. We just launched an announcement today with Kaufman Rosen, who's a large independent audit and advisory firm. They just validated our AI models for us for both transaction monitoring as well as screening, which for us now provides a better, it takes away that arm's length discussion around defensibility of the platform. We now have third-party validation, which I think is a necessary step for banks and fintechs to feel more comfortable to make that leap with, okay, this isn't just this black box that we're hoping is accurate, but our models have been validated by a third party to say this is the direction, and we want that accountability and defensibility, and we want to be the gold standard for that AI intelligence.
So that's obviously amazing news, amazing announcement from you guys yesterday. What does that lead into over the next 2-3 years for the business, and where do you see the market heading as well?
Yeah, as I walked the floor here, it was interesting because 6 months ago there was a lot of AI common speak. I think that there's a lot of sea of sameness because AI has provided, has allowed for vendors to come into the market very quickly and say a lot of the same things. We're now hearing more about AI accountability, and we're hearing more about integration. The one thing that I'm seeing is a massive transformation on the floor here when you talk about tokenization, crypto, the merging of things like AML and cybersecurity. AI is going to play a much larger role in all of that. Yeah. In the same breath, you have to have that level of validation for your models, validation for how you're looking at transactions, and I think that's really where it's going to separate the haves from the have-nots in the space.
I completely agree. So final section of our interview, we asked all of our guests, we have a segment called the Shelf of Shame, where you get to nominate something in. It could be payments, it could be business, it could be fintech, something that really grinds your gears that you'd rather see gone forever.
Alert fatigue. When you think about millions of transactions today, and when we speak with banks and fintechs, one of the primary challenges they have is the world of false positives. Yeah. And the time and energy and human capital expense to just sift through the thousands of false positives that are taking place. As an AI-powered financial crime compliance platform, we're hoping to remove those. Our platform today can remove up to 80% of false positives. It's so challenging when you're dealing with 20-30% of your overhead just trying to resolve false positives. I'm hoping that in a year we're no longer having those conversations.
Brilliant. Well, happy to put that on the shelf for you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.